Hi, everyone. We'll get started in just a few seconds. Hi, welcome, everyone. My name is Sarah Carr, and I am Chief Knowledge Broker for OCTO, Open Communications for the Ocean. On behalf of OCTO at Colorado State University and the Blue Nature Alliance, we welcome you to today's webinar on the social aspects of marine protected area management, building effective and equitable ocean conservation. Thank you all so much for joining us here to delve into the subject. We're very excited to have an amazing panel of speakers here today. I am going to quickly introduce Audrey Ramsey from the Center for Marine Protected Area Management. And Audrey is going to introduce you to the other panelists here today and tell you about how today's webinar is going to go. So welcome, Audrey. I'll turn it over to you now.
Thanks so much, Sarah. Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for coming. We're very, very excited to bring some great speakers to you today. And we're going to be talking about social aspects of marine protected area management. So let's see. I'm going to start by going over what we're going to be doing today. You'll hear from our incredible partners here, Lihla, Kira, and Will, throughout this agenda, but we're going to start by talking about what is social aspects. Then we're going to go and talk about the Blue Nature Alliance and why the social aspects are so important for MPA effectiveness. Then we'll go on into the new IUCN Guidebook that just came out for assessing and improving social equity in marine conservation. And then we'll get to hear from Will about fisherfolk involvement in marine conservation. And then pivot back to tell you a little bit about the social aspects of marine protected area management seminar and some future initiatives that we have coming up that we're very excited to share with you. And then we'll have some time for question and answers at the end. And speaking of questions and answers, if you have any during the session, if you can use the Q&A function down at the bottom of your Zoom screen, it should be down on that bottom bar. That'll help us keep questions organized, and then we will do our best to get to as many as we can at the end and have a good discussion. So while I get started introducing our lovely speakers today, I wanted to ask all of you who are here in the audience to put your names and your countries, your affiliations in the chat, and also a couple of words about what you think of when you think about social aspects of marine protected areas. And you'll also hear this called human dimensions sometimes, especially in the academic sphere, but we're referring to the same thing there. So I'll go ahead and do that while I get started introducing our speakers, starting with Lihla Noori. She is the Capacity and Learning Lead of the Blue Nature Alliance, and she brings over 20 years of experience in conservation capacity building, partnership development, and philanthropy across Micronesia, the Caribbean, and Hawaii, with a focus on scalable and durable marine protected area support systems, leveraging regional and global partnerships, and investing in innovative approaches to knowledge resources. We also have Kira Sullivan-Wiley with us. Kira is part of the Blue Nature Alliance Science and Knowledge team. She supports the capacity and learning branch that Lihla is also the lead on. And beyond the Alliance, she is an environmental social scientist at the Pew Charitable Trusts, and she supports their conservation work on human well-being. This includes exploring how large-scale conservation activity might engage with and support local communities for their mutual benefit. We have also with us Will Heyman, who is a marine conservation scientist with over 30 years of international and domestic experience across nonprofits, academia, the private sector, and is recognized globally for leading the creation of over 20 marine reserves, publishing over 60 peer-reviewed articles, and using a cooperative ecosystem-based approach to building sustainable marine and coastal ecosystems while engaging fishers, managers, scientists, and communities. And lastly, I'll introduce myself. My name is Audrey Ramsey. I am the training specialist and the lead marine program representative at the Center for Protected Area Management. I have experience designing and delivering international capacity development programs for marine and terrestrial protected area programs. And I specialize in participatory learning, social-ecological approaches, and interpretive techniques for public use management. And I have a big focus on and passion for advancing equitable and effective conservation. So that's our team that we have for you today. Let's see, there we go. So I wanted to tell you a little bit more about where I work, the Center for Protected Area Management. We are housed within Colorado State University in the Human Dimensions of Natural Resources Department. We have over 30 years of experience doing capacity development, which we also like to call now capacity sharing programs for practitioners working in conservation in over 100 countries over those 30 years. So we like to say capacity sharing and really believe in that concept that everyone that comes to our programs is both a teacher and a learner. We really strive to create these different spaces where people can come together and share knowledge, expand their perspectives by meeting people from all over the world, and see what's possible by interacting with these others from different countries around the world. We have programs both in person and online. We're going to be talking about one of our online programs later today. We offer them in English and Spanish and cover various spaces that are related to protected areas and those that are supporting and stewarding them. Those areas include sustainable tourism. We've done programs on women's leadership in conservation, programs on park rangers, and our longest lasting one is our terrestrial protected area management seminar that we host in Colorado. And the one we're talking about today is the social aspects of marine protected area management online seminar. We really strive to have a holistic and transdisciplinary approach to everything, going through themes like the systems thinking, leadership, and equity. So just wanted to throw this out there as we start our session today, that when we're saying marine protected areas, we're thinking of that in a very broad sense, a bit beyond just the one definition of kind of more governmentally designated, legally designated areas. We're talking about OECMs, other effective area-based conservation measures. We're talking about indigenous-led protected areas. We're talking about multiple use. We're talking about locally managed marine areas. Everything you can imagine that sphere is what we mean when we say marine protected areas. So when we think about marine protected areas, what are the first things that come to mind for you all? Often our minds float firstly to lots of fish, let's protect the fish, which is very important, of course, and other ecological benefits, such as protecting biodiversity in general, habitats, and species. But the other equally important side to consider is the social aspects, or what I mentioned earlier, academics also refer to as human dimensions. So I cannot see the chat right now, but I would love to see what people are saying about what you feel is social aspects. But I'll just invite you all to take a look through the chat and read what other people are saying in there.
Me to read it to you, Audrey?
Sure.
We have
Yeah,
employment and compliance, coastal communities, well-being, people, policy and philanthropy, resilient communities, protect the ancestral, relationships and interactions, impacts and opportunities beyond conservation for local communities and the wider communities, complex connections between communities and resources, people, trust, empowerment, governance, equity, justice, sustainability of projects. I'm actually going to stop there. I'm sorry for anyone I didn't get to.
It's okay. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. You are on it already. That's great. So thanks so much for putting those thoughts in there. Those are all underneath that realm, right? We were going on the definition of Kittinger from 2012, and they defined it as the ways in which individuals, communities, and societies interact with, affect, and are affected by natural ecosystems and the environmental change through time, which encompasses all those things that you all mentioned. So that relationship between people and the marine environment, which was what we're talking about today. So another useful way to think about it is this framework that was developed by Soman and colleagues, which includes these 5 dimensions you can see in the little crab icons. I was going to say emojis, those are not emojis, icons up top, who divided the social aspects into 5 different areas of the social, cultural, political, governance, and economic aspects. So each of these broad themes, as you can see, has many different components within it. Barreto and colleagues reviewed these 5 areas that were defined by Soman and teased out these 35 components that are under these themes. So this kind of can help us start to grasp the complexities of this work and give us this comprehensive view of the many, many factors that need to be considered when we're trying to ensure that MPAs are managed in ways that support people and nature at the same time. So social aspects also means centering people, not just lightheartedly considering or checking a box, but really centering the diversity of stakeholders and rights holders that we involve, Indigenous and local communities, fishers, tourism operators, scientists, policymakers, you name it, because each of these different groups brings different knowledge systems, priorities, and experiences to the table. It also entails understanding how people use marine spaces, whether it's for fishing, for tourism, transportation routes, or cultural and spiritual practices, and how those uses shapes different relationships to the place. It involves understanding people's values, the ways that people assign meaning to the ocean, its resources, and its conservation. And when you start to explore and uncover these values and where they root from, we can begin to understand what makes conservation matter to different groups and how our management can reflect that diversity of meaning. It involves understanding how people are impacted when we make management decisions, which is no simple task. There's a lot of different groups that are affected by the choices that we make, even far out in the distance that we might not even think of that at times. But we need to think about this in a systems thinking lens, a systems approach, to really get the full picture of how our actions are affecting people, either in a positive or negative way. Effective and sustainable management requires engaging all different voices to make sure that everything is considered meaningfully and equitably. So why are these so important to consider? They affect every part of our management processes and the likelihood that our managed marine areas will be successful and long-lasting and are supported both by the communities around them and the people that rely on them for their livelihoods and well-being close by and maybe a little bit farther than you'd think. So it's fundamental for ecosystem and human rights-based approaches to conservation, and it really can drive MPA success or failure. So when social dimensions are integrated from the beginning, MPAs, they're more likely to succeed and tend to have stronger compliance, greater local support for these areas, and more enduring outcomes when you really get people invested in these places and do it in ways that really support them. And beyond it just being effective, it's an approach that reflects the fairness of the process and recognizing that these conservation decisions, they have real implications for real people and their rights, their access to spaces and opportunities that they have. So it's not just about making things effective, but it's also really, really ensuring that ocean conservation advances that equity and justice piece and not just the ecological targets, even though we know that those are also very important. So that's what we mean when we talk about social aspects, recognizing that MPAs are living systems for people and nature, and that the long-term success of them depends on our ability to integrate both of those things into our management. So we will explore a little bit more with our other speakers to think about how this connects with broader efforts that we'll be mentioning later to make ocean conservation more inclusive and equitable. So we will have more to come. The cool thing is that this very quick little spiel is basically a short introduction to what our social aspects of marine protected areas online seminar entails. So a quick little sneak peek into the first module of the seminar, and I'm going to come back at the end and tell you all a little bit about that initiative as well. So after we hear from our other amazing speakers, who Lihla is going to start next. So I will pass it over to you, Lihla.
Thank you so much, Audrey, and welcome to everyone in the chat. Thank you for joining us from all parts of the world. I'm here based in Hawaii for the last 15 years and share a warm aloha mai kako to everyone who's in my time zone here in the morning, and welcome everyone in different time zones. Thank you for joining us at odd hours of the day. I am at the Blue Nature Alliance. We are a global initiative that works in partnership with government, NGOs, and local communities. We were formed about 5 years ago with the ambitious goal to double the amount of ocean area conserved. Next slide, please. That's who we are. And the next slide, please. This map actually shows the breadth of the Alliance engagements to date. We can share about over 40 engagements thus far. This is the Alliance's impact that can be felt across all 5 oceans. And thank you, Kira, for putting in the chat. If you wanted to get deeper and see how we're working in these places, you can visit our website where we have more details on each of these engagements. But basically, at each of these engagements, we work closely with our partners to develop a strategy that responds to each site's specific challenges and needs. And of course, with the goals of advancing the protection of either new areas or improved management or upgrading protections in these existing areas. And together we cover such a broad range of interventions from financial support, technical expertise, capacity development, and sustainable financing. So in addition to that, on the next slide, you'll notice that complementary to this site-based work and integrating with it, the Alliance also works to cultivate the global enabling conditions that are so necessary to reaching this ambitious goal of protecting 30% of the world's oceans. This includes new science, tools, innovations, policies, and capacity development directly related to the field of ocean conservation at scale. And for me, I come from the capacity and learning piece of this work where we are doubling down, trying to figure out how to advance management effectiveness. Next slide. So why is social aspects so important to MPA effectiveness? This graphic illustrates the extent of the capacity development field. So often people think of capacity development as simply like a training or mentoring or go get your master's degree, but it's actually so much more too about the systems that are needed to ensure that people and institutions actually have the ability to effectively implement their MPAs in the long term. This requires, on the left, you can see knowledge, skills, but it also includes behaviors and structures and processes. We need to be altering attitudes, values, and shaping the resources and power that we need. Each one of these aspects are rooted in human dimensions. It's how people work through these issues, which is the very essence social in nature. And importantly, just like education in the health system, marine conservation must work across multiple levels in the system, from the individual practitioner level into and across the organizational level, and up into the societal or the broader enabling conditions. Honestly, achieving management effectiveness or effective management relies on our ability to continually deliver capacity development at all these levels, and also thinking about how we connect the site to the national to regional levels up to these global commitments. Likewise, effective and continuous MPA capacity development needs the right governance systems to ensure people and institutions have the ability to implement quality MPAs in the long term. This means as much as we wish to expand MPAs globally, we'll also need to exponentially resource and mainstream the deep knowledge and practice that it takes to do social aspects well. Sometimes we call it social equity. Sometimes we call it human dimensions. This can make or break your ability to reach your MPA goals. Next slide. We see equitable governance actually specifically mentioned and called out in the 30 by 30 goal. However, let's be honest, it's like little resources actually exist to help practitioners accomplish this well, and especially to accomplish this well at scale. Way back in 1994, like a generation ago, Dr. Janice Alcorn, a famous anthropologist, highlighted that conservation is actually more so a social and political process than a biological process. This clear call for a focus on the human elements of conservation is really echoed in our current partnership with the Marine Conservation Institute. Shout out to Beth, who I saw on the call, and her collaborator, Dr. Christine Ward Page, who said, MPAs do not manage themselves, people do. So that's why the Blue Nature Alliance has invested in equitable governance across our portfolio and cultivated these two partnerships we'll spotlight today. One, the social aspects of MPAs, as we know, likely the most critical factor of success, but it's also the most undervalued and under-resourced probably as far as all the elements that it takes to really effectively manage your MPA. And so we have Audrey here, of course, from the Colorado State Center for Protected Area Management. She'll talk more about the courses, not just social aspects, but an international course that they're designing right now. And then our long partnership with Dr. Nathan Bennett from the People Seas Initiative and now World Wildlife Fund, where that work has resulted in the Alliance Code of Conduct and the IUCN Guidebook that Dr. Kira Sullivan-Wiley will actually talk to us about next and dig in there on resources and tools to help you become a better social aspects practitioner in your MPA. Thank you so much, and over to you, Kira.
Thank you. Thanks very much. And I did not yet share the link to the Code of Conduct and to the other publication you mentioned. So Lihla, if you can do that. Thank you. Yeah, I would be very happy to speak briefly to, you can move on from this slide. Thanks, Audrey. I'd be really happy to say a few words about that recent social equity partnership that Lihla just mentioned, as you mentioned, led by Dr. Nathan Bennett of WWF and Mark Andrzejczyk of Reconnect Consulting, who I think is also on this call. So shout out to you. The goal was, as Lihla mentioned, to address the need for kind of marine specific flexible approaches specifically geared towards people who are working in marine conservation to work towards social equity in those sites. As a culmination of that work, last month, the freely available guidebook was published on the IUCN website. So if someone could pop that link in the chat, that would be really helpful. I'll speak briefly about it now, but for those who are interested in hearing more about that effort, and the guidebook itself, there was a really fantastic Octo webinar a few weeks ago on it that we'll also share the link to if you want to go check that out. So the guidebook reflects over a year of iterative code development with a working group of global experts based on an extensive literature review. It started in literature. Well, it started with people, and then it moved to the literature, and then it came back out to looking at existing tools and resources around social equity and conservation, of which there are many, and we want to acknowledge all of that work that has already gone into this space, reflect on those and the insights also from a panel of MPA managers and their networks, and then tweaking that based on 4 tests of the guide and the various components of the guidebook in 3 countries and 4 MPAs. And yet it is still a work in progress. I think many of us in this field recognize that a lot of this work it's ongoing. And so feedback is still welcome. You can reach out to any of the folks in that. If you go to the guidebook, it shows a list of authors. You can reach out to us with feedback. That would be always welcome, especially if you're trialing any of this in situ. That would be great to hear about. So if you could click again, Audrey, thanks. Probably 2 clicks, yeah, go ahead. Recognizing though that there's a wide range of contexts in which marine conservation happens globally, the guidebook does provide it's sort of 3 guidebooks in one, 3 alternative approaches to social equity assessment, a rapid approach, a stakeholder engagement approach, and then a co-produced approach that offers the most flexibility in tailoring to a specific context. These three different approaches really differ in the depth of insights and the different time commitments, expertise, and sort of resource commitment that they entail. So next slide, please. So of all three assessments, though, draw on each of these 6 dimensions that are shown here. I don't know if you can zoom in later if you can't see it quite on the screen now, but that was based on a literature review and a consultation process that I mentioned to ensure that any of the assessments that you do, that the assessment team gains a broad understanding of equity in the local context that you're looking at. The rapid equity assessment is designed to provide sort of quick insights. It's sort of the quickest and perhaps, I hesitate to use the word straightforward, but sort of the most straightforward of those to get key insights into the key equity issues based on the reflections of usually a small group of managers, sort of people who are very close to sort of the center of management of that particular MPA to get that rapid feedback. The stakeholder and rights holder equity assessment provides more breadth and depth to increase awareness of equity issues. So through that kind of the outreach of doing the assessment, you provide, there's the element of awareness raising, but also a broader range of people from whom to garner insights and perspectives. And then the co-produced and customized equity assessment really is, it's intended to be fully adaptable to local needs. So it's a sort of modularized approach to local needs and ways of understanding equity. So the guidebook provides a sort of process for doing that. So you can click, oh, right now it's the part on the right. So it's a reflexive and adaptive approach that's co-designed with stakeholders and rights holders. So it walks through, for each of these assessments, it walks through sort of how you choose which approach to use, which one's kind of the most appropriate for your context, whatever the constraints and the goals of the assessment are, what you're trying to achieve, preparing for the assessment, conducting the assessment, and then sort of visualizing results, sharing those, communicating those out, and reflecting them to ensure that the results of the assessment go back into adaptive management. So the goal of all of this is to feed back into the people making decisions around the protected area or the conservation activity to increase the likelihood that you're well prepared to improve social equity over time. So the focus really is on learning and adapting and improving social equity over time, rather than kind of getting a grade or something like that. So obviously this is something that, the last thing I wanted to mention on this is that the assessment team, so these are kind of not quite nested, but they speak to each other. And so over time, as there's more adaptation and learning through the assessment process, you can also shift, right? You can start maybe with a rapid assessment, but then as capacity grows locally, people become more familiar, maybe you are asking better questions about social equity in your context, you can change which type of assessment you're adopting, and have those results sort of speak to each other and be mutually intelligible, right? You can understand through time how those things are changing. And yeah, I would just direct you, if you want more information on that, to the Octo webinar that already happened and to the guidebook itself and the various resources that we're hoping to produce related to it. I think back to Audrey or over to Will, I'm not sure. Thanks.
It is over to Will next. So thank you so much, Kira, and I will pass it to Will. Get your slide up. There we go.
Thanks so much. Great to be here. Welcome all. Yeah, I'm going to follow up with one of the specific groups of stakeholders that we talk about in terms of social aspects. The group in my mind that's typically the most affected, if you're going to protect an area, typically you're going to protect it from fishing. So next slide, please. So when I say fisher folk, that means, to me, there's a lot of language on this, but to me, the definition is at the bottom. Can you guys see that? Yeah. So not only fishers that are in the water, but everyone through the value chain. So people that clean fish, market fish, move fish around, sell boats, etc. And to me, fishers and fisher folk have the most at stake when it comes to marine ecosystem management. Again, if you stop fishing, that's kind of who it affects. So they depend on these resources for sustainability of their communities, their economics. And, fishers and fisher folk embrace sustainable management. It's only defeating if they don't. All right. And fishers also maintain, and there's a lot of literature on this, but this vast local ecological knowledge of how systems work. And as a result of these, issues or background, they can become really important conservation leaders. That said, in the literature that I've seen and in the experiences that I've had in the field, with all the money that goes towards marine conservation, the actual support for fishers to do conservation, to do the science, to lead these activities is usually a tiny fraction of what's available. Next slide, please. So, I'm glad you mentioned Alcorn 1995 and that people were really important. That was 94. The very next year, fishers around the world participated in developing a code of conduct for responsible fisheries and small scale fishers have really used that and voluntarily kind of adopted those ways of thinking, which is really the start of marine conservation from a fisher perspective. What is that? A long time ago. So, and more recently, the voluntary guidelines for securing sustainable small scale fisheries. Again, this is not top down. This is people saying, hey, we depend on these resources. We need to take care of them. And then more recently, in terms of marine conservation, you look at the SDG goals. And, the marine conservation field, as did terrestrial conservation, came out of a very kind of northern scientific perspective. And the SDG goals are taking a much more holistic look at the relationship, as this seminar is all about, the people and sustainable use, and human dignity, and certainly life below water, goal 14 addresses that directly. And so fishers have always addressed that. Great, moving slide. So I'm going to kind of drop into a little case study on this. I've been associated with something called the Gladding Memorial Award Program, recognizing that fishers are and have been incredible conservation leaders. And it's named for Peter Gladding, who many might know was the kind of the father of the Florida Keys National Marine Sanctuary. And that's a story you can look into on the links that you can find. Whoops. So if that's the case, was my mic not working well? I don't know. I'm coming closer to it. Peter was able to come into a room with scientists and managers and fishers that were adamantly against protected areas. Because of the trust and respect he had with all of those groups, he was able to put through a massive no-take zone marine reserve with the support of all those groups. And he unfortunately died the next year, but to honor his legacy, this Gladding Memorial Award Program was developed and offers an annual award to fishers who document or who demonstrate a strong commitment and action of sustainable use and marine conservation in the Gulf and Caribbean region. And I was just in Cartagena, Colombia with both Lihla and Audrey, where the 2025 winner was just awarded. And there he is in the middle, along with winners from Antigua, Barbuda, Dominican Republic, Guatemala, Florida, Bahamas, Texas, and Colombia. And so I'm charting this out in a public, well, hopefully a publication, something we just submitted to Marine Policy. And so I kind of want to give you some of the initial findings that we have on this. Objectives, we wanted to summarize, the GMA winners, the target species, their habitats, the fishing, show the real diversity. Oh no, okay. Can you, people in the chat are saying they can't hear me well. Is it any better now if I'm closer in? Okay. So sorry, you got to look at me too close, but anyway, at least maybe you can hear me better. Yeah, and so, and then show all of the different contributions these people have made through the last 20 years, and then really show the connection or show the costs and benefits of the approach of these fisher-led approaches to marine conservation, as opposed to more traditional approaches, which are, more government funded, et cetera, and maybe internationally funded, et cetera. So that was the objectives. I'm going to hammer through some quick results, and we can move on from there. So in general, we had 26 GMA winners from 17 countries or territories. They go after an enormous variety of species, conch and lobster, invertebrates, as well as finfish for food, from very shallow to very deep, as well as sponges and bait fish and sport fish. Huge diversity of targets. Next. And a huge diversity of gears and techniques, okay, from diving in the water to attended gear, unattended gear, including traps and trawl nets and gill nets, beach seines, all kinds of things. So again, broad diversity of both targets and gears. Next slide. And also a enormous contribution of sustainable actions that we've quantified through a series of definitions and very rigorous criteria that I'm not going to go into. But the point is that if you look at this, fishermen have been heavily involved in spatial protection, building awareness, policy and legal issues, cooperative research, and have made giant contributions to both SDG 14 and 30 by 30 targets. Next slide. If we do a little analysis of what are the common characteristics among these people, respect and trust of fishers, managers, and scientists. Typically, they're the fishers that catch a lot. They've been around. Okay, and extensive volunteerism and often very charismatic leaders. Next slide. So this is what we found really strange. I ran through a bunch of numbers in some publications and kind of showed that the Gladding Memorial Award Program has been struggling along at about $45,000 a year. And that includes travel for participants to go to international meetings and all kinds of, administration and all that stuff, which has, so basically it has to do with a lot of volunteer and in-kind support. But then when I looked at the kind of money that goes into marine conservation and sustainable management in the Gulf of Mexico or Gulf of America and the Caribbean, overseas development aid, NGOs, philanthropies, development banks, and national governments all put in, and this is a very conservative number, 417 million per year. And so I guess, it's not either or. My point is simply that, perhaps with a little, next slide, please. Perhaps with a little bit more support for either this GMA program and direct support to fishers, because of their importance in the process, may really unleash some huge potential for conservation. And this might be relevant in other parts of the world. We're doing this in the Gulf and Caribbean, but similar programs may be relevant other places as well. And, again, fisher leadership, it's not just, in conservation, but like from the ground. These people have lived there forever and or generations, and a lot of the most successful protected areas like Cabo Pulmo in Mexico was when the fishers said, hey, what are we doing? We're killing all the fish in our front yard. We're going to make a giant no-take zone in our front yard. And lo and behold, the fish came back like crazy. They could go further out, catch plenty of fish. And then the tourism and all the other aspects came zooming in. The government supports it. They get co-management. These people should be involved from the very, very beginning of project definition, design, cooperative research, goal setting, capacity building, economic alternatives development, zoning, and the various different types of management that exist. So thanks. That's my perspective, and really delighted to be on this webinar and share all this with you. And so I'm going to turn it back over to our moderators.
Thank you so much, Will. Amazing. Thanks for sharing that perspective. We had the pleasure, Lihla and I, meeting some of these Gladding Memorial Award winners in Cartagena last week or the week before. I guess it was the week before now. Seems like it was just yesterday, but they were amazing, amazing champions of this work. And oh my gosh, were they inspiring. And I wanted to have them with me all the time because their perspectives were just really, really interesting and super important. So really, really cool initiative there. Okay, now I get to tell you a bit about the seminar that we created around this topic of social aspects of MPAs. So this is an online seminar that our center, the Center for Protected Area Management, offers. We had the pleasure of working with the Blue Nature Alliance to develop this online seminar, where we started in the beginning of 2023 at Impact 5, the International Marine Protected Area Conference in Vancouver, with a focus group, and worked to the end of 2024 to launch it. And in that time, we did many things together, from a global needs assessment. We talked directly to marine practitioners about their needs for capacity development, capacity sharing within the social aspects realm. We worked with an advisory committee from all parts of the globe. We spoke with academics, we spoke with managers and all sorts of practitioners to create the curriculum for this program. And we're lucky to travel to various parts of the world to highlight some amazing case studies that were doing great work in this area, from the beautiful islands of Palau all the way up to the frozen ocean in Nunatsiavut in northern Labrador. Where we were able to interview people and share their incredible examples of the work that they were doing throughout this program that we developed. So to give you a little idea of what we talk about in the seminar, we have 7 modules. It's a 14-week online program. It's asynchronous, but with some synchronous aspects to it. I'll talk about that a little more in a second, but these are the topics that emerged as the most important, and the topics that we were luckily able to cover with the incredible examples that we were introduced to around the world. So social aspects, what is it? Kind of what we talked about in the beginning here. Really talking and diving into the human rights aspect, talking about the diverse values, types of values, how you find those out, and how you can really use that to achieve co-benefits. We dive into governance and politics, different governance structures, from co-management, local management, all sorts of different areas there. We go into the different uses, human use, pressure, and behaviors that impact and drive our marine environments, and how marine protected areas support human well-being, and how you navigate conflict in these situations. And finally, positioning people's own institutions for effective and equitable management from the inside out. So there's lots more lessons that go in that, and I'm going to send a link in the chat afterwards to our website, which you can go and explore all of the details of what is it within each of those modules. So the coolest part I feel about this program is that it's not just here's some definitions and concepts that are really important sort of seminar, but we were so lucky to be able to bring the voices of marine practitioners that were on the ground, still are on the ground, and highlight these incredible examples. So we had different parts of it that maybe were a bit more academic and learning about concepts, but then had managers from all over the world, bouncing around from an example in Palau to an example in Belize to an example from somebody who studied on the Great Barrier Reef, or somebody who started a locally managed marine area network in Madagascar. We had amazing stories to back up the concepts that we were covering. And that was something that I feel is really interesting and unique about this program. So our case studies were really the highlight, I think, of this. And we were able to see so many things, like even how Belizean nonprofits are working with the Belizean government to run marine protected areas, and how they're adapting management strategies to include protection of traditional fishers and their fishing practices and cultures that really ensure that their culture and traditions can be long lasting and supported even in this modern world that we're living in. So that was the really exciting part about this, and we're so excited to be able to share it. Online learning can be a little bit more difficult to do than in person. We love to connect as people, right? So it's not quite as easy through a screen, but we got kind of good at it with COVID, right? So but we try to provide opportunities for our participants to connect with each other as much as possible, and also through with our team through homeworks and discussion boards, and through and 2 different facilitators that we brought onto our live sessions, so they could get some live moments with some of our amazing content providers. So really, we love to try and get people to apply concepts as soon as possible when we're diving into them. We think that once you think about things in your own context, that's when it like really solidifies and becomes useful. So we do that through all of these engagements, through various tools and homeworks, we call them, but that makes it sound kind of like a chore, but hopefully it's not. They're more useful. That really challenge all the participants to apply the concepts that they're learning. And they finish the whole program by creating this social aspects action plan that they are then supposed to go out and start after the program is over, and hopefully create some change that they were either inspired by from the seminar or something that they're already working on, where they can apply the concepts that they learned. So that's that program. Well, actually, I'm going to say right now also, we are recruiting for this program at the moment. We just launched it a couple of weeks ago, right before the GCFI conference. I'm going to send a link in the chat after I finish sharing my screen here to send you the information on more about the seminar and how you can apply, or send it to people that would like to apply. So I will send that in the chat next. And that closes on January 5th. So to tell you a bit about our future efforts, like Lihla mentioned earlier, we have some exciting things coming up. One of them being a social aspects short video series, which we're working with the Blue Nature Alliance right now to come up with some of take some of the videos from this program, the social aspects online program, and make them available to the public, because this is a paid seminar, or people get sponsored to come to the seminar. But we want to try and share these amazing stories and concepts as much as we can with people, so that it can really get out and used. So that's coming up. And then we also are beginning the development of the International Seminar on Marine Protected Area Management, which we are hoping to launch in 2027, February, in Baja California, Mexico. So we just started with a focus group at that conference that we were at, the GCFI conference, to start that process. And we're going to be working on getting that designed and ready for 2027. So that is our future efforts that will be coming up. And just wanted to give a huge thank you to everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. Thank you to all of our amazing speakers, Will, Kira, Lihla, and thank you, Octo, for hosting us today. It's really exciting to be on here. And if you have any questions about any of this, we're going to be sharing a PDF and a Google Drive link that Sarah's going to put on the website with the recording of this webinar, so that you all can have access to some of those things that we mentioned. Some of the links that we sent in the chat are going to be on there as well. So anybody watching the recording, hello, can access that as well. So, and please reach out anytime to get more involved. So I will pass there. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey, and thank you, Kira, Will, and Lihla. This was great. It was great to learn all about the work that's going on, as well as the course. Just remind everyone, we have time for some questions right now. If you want to send in questions through the Q&A, as well as through the chat, you can do it either way. And even if we're not able to get to all the questions in the next few minutes, we'll be able to give them to the speakers too. So one question, what do people seem most surprised about after they take the course, the social aspects course?
Excuse me. I'm gonna say for the social aspects course, but this is also something that we see with all of our other seminars as well, is so one of the really cool things about having an online program, but also what we're gonna be creating with this international in-person marine protected area seminar in Baja California, is the international aspect of it and the different experiences and the challenges that people have and the solutions that people come up with. People are on complete opposite sides of the planet, speak completely different languages, and people have really similar challenges and really creative solutions that can be adapted and applied to different contexts. So I think that that's one of the things that we hear frequently with all of our seminars, and we also heard with the first cohort of the social aspects program too.
Thank you, Audrey. And do you collect data on what the motivations are for the people who take the course? And do you sort of have any information on that?
Yeah, so for our first cohort, we had quite a group. It was amazing. We had 41 participants from 23 different countries. And the seminar was tailored towards managers when we were designing it, but our participants ended up being from lots of different sectors. So we had managers, we had park rangers, we had people in academic institutions, researchers, and they all had different motivations for coming to the seminar, but a lot of it was just to get an understanding of what social aspects entails, what sorts of things people are doing. That was one of the key things that came out of our needs assessment, and especially of the focus group that we did at Impact, was that people really want to see examples of things. And so that was why we really, really honed in on trying to provide as many case studies as possible. We had the 3 main case studies, which was the Palau case study, and then we had the Nunatsiavut case study that was really focused around co-management between the Nunatsiavut government, which is an Inuit community up in northern Labrador. They have their own government, and they are working with the Canadian government to work with their space up there, and a new marine protected area actually that they designated while we were there, which was really cool. And then Belize, we were talking about different marine protected area networks and how those were working together. So that I think that motivation of wanting to see what other people are doing is a high one for everyone that came, I believe, even if they were in academia or actually on the ground doing management.
One thing I could add to Audrey is that what I was surprised about being a fly on the wall on the WhatsApp thread that she manages at the same time of the course being delivered, they're actually building networks of colleagues and professional connections between the participants, which were 40 at that time. And usually when you take a course, you think, I'm just going to take this course, be done, get my credentials, bye. But actually she's building community at every moment. And that chat thread was just blowing up the entire time the course was taking place, leading up to the beginning and afterwards. Even to today, it's still being used by the participants to keep that cohesion alive, because really it was also about growing their network in this space. And to be honest, maybe half of them weren't even new people in the field. They were professionals just wanting to amp up what their skill set and tools are in their pocket. So really it's, you know, to improve professionals in the field and for folks just entering the field. But that network and that strong community was a really big surprise to me. That's really not expected when you're thinking about a more formal course.
That's wonderful.
Thanks so
We love
much.
communities of practice. Okay. We just have a few more minutes, but an early question, are examples of MPAs using social equity practices? Are there any, you just listed a whole bunch of examples of that are in the covered in the course and in the guidebook. Is there any in particular you'd want to draw out, like really great examples? I'm sure they're all great examples, but of MPAs using social equity practices and what lessons they learned?
There's so many that were talked about in the seminar, and I wish I could tell you about every single one of them. Let me see. I think that one of the really cool ones, I mean, they're all cool, but the one that I'm going to talk about right now is the Nunatsiavut one, which I mentioned earlier, where the Nunatsiavut government is working with the Canadian government to design their marine protected area system and their process and everything. But they really focused on starting with community. That was something that they highlight and talk about over and over, is that it wasn't that they were bringing in researchers from around the world. Yes, they had some of those, but the first thing and the first priority was always community, community, community. And that was so cool, because it wasn't just even using our more traditional Western processes of like social science, for example, to get this information of what was important for the communities. It was doing this research through storytelling ways and like recording storytelling and then pulling out things from that and doing it in a way that takes a long time. And that, I think that's one of the reasons that it's really challenging, because we're always so limited on time and funding, of course. But I think that that's just one of the most important pieces, is like really trying to adapt your approaches to the context that you're working in and not coming in and opposing systems that might not fit with those contexts. So that was a really interesting case study, because they just did an awesome job with making community first and that the priority no matter what, throughout the entire process of this Nunatsiavut Marine Plan that they were developing, the Mapuvut Marine Plan, sorry.
Great. Thank you, Audrey.
There's a really good question in the chat, right, Sarah? Somebody said, I'm Ethiopian, and as you might know, we don't have marine waters, but we have freshwater bodies like big lakes and reservoirs. Am I eligible to take the course? And of course, Audrey, I'm sure you'll say, absolutely. Marine, yes, but social equity is really the underlying principle here. In any protected area you work in, there's going to be so many lessons learned, and potentially there might not be a social equity in terrestrial protected area course. So I think Audrey's seen that cross-pollination in her other courses, where her terrestrial protected area course that's been going on for 40 years actually sees marine people joining, because there wasn't a marine version, which is kind of the reason why we're supporting building out the marine version. So that's the short answer to this wonderful gentleman in the chat, the only one who sent us a question. So thank you so much. And we're also running out of time, Sarah tells us, but the idea about what sites to look at as far as examples in social equity, I'm sure Will has a whole bunch where fishermen are really involved in their protected area and management of their marine systems. So if I were you, afterwards, you could look at the locally marine managed area, obviously very rooted in a social movement, others that have community-based management approaches. We can see this in the New Caledonia work that we're supporting. You could find more information on our website about those partners, and maybe Google the Canuck Customary Authority. In Rapa Nui, you could Google the Rapa Nui Sea Council, because they're making huge headways in managing their own places in a way that social equity is always at the core. And then the Great Bear Sea in Canada is another fantastic example of Indigenous people taking ownership for their places. So I think going to those sites and looking at the decades of work leading up to that would be really helpful for those interested in seeing social equity in action in certain MPAs in the world.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lihla. And that was a good.
That really quick.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I thank you for that question. And yes, as Lihla said, I think that you can definitely still try and join because it does go across social in general. But I also wanted to mention, as Lihla mentioned a bit earlier, also that I know it can be a bit confusing because we're within a university, and but our programs are really targeted towards people that are actively in the field. It's not just like a university program for undergrads. In fact, we haven't ever had an undergrad in our program, but you could apply. But it's not targeted at like university students. It's really trying to support people that are in mid-career or entering the conservation sphere to really connect and explore these things. So just wanted to clarify that.
Fantastic. Thank you guys so much for coming and presenting on this and letting everyone know about this amazing opportunity coming up, but giving us a flavor for all of it beforehand. We so appreciate you being on, and we appreciate you doing this work. If there are any additional questions, you guys can email me and I can relay it to our presenters today. Otherwise, the webinar was recorded and the recording will be posted later today alongside all the resources they mentioned. There'll be a document there on the OCTA website. If you go to our webinars page, scroll down to the link for this webinar and it'll be there. Plus, we'll follow up with an email to everyone, letting you know about all the resources, the great resources that were shared. So thank you again, guys. We appreciate you being on.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks for coming.
All right. And thank you to everyone who attended. We look forward to having you on future webinars. All right. Bye, everyone.